Alright, so torque. It's pretty great. It's involved in golf, really is. And it affects with ball goes and all that kind of stuff. Because torque is the rotational analog of force. From common experience, we know that it's easier to rotate a handle farther from the axis than closer to it. We also know that the only component of force that is perpendicular to the handle does any work, or if we push it along the handle, we would not rotate the handle. We thus expect that rotational analog of force called torque is given by this beautiful equation right here. Thanks. Okay, and then in vector notation, this is torque, and where R is the vector pointing perpendicularly away from the axis towards the point of application of the force. This above formula can be generalized as the rigid rotation about an axis. Rotations are more generally about a point than an axis. For rotations about a point R is the vector pointing from the rotation center to the point of the application of the force. Torque is still given by torque is equal to R times F for a body revolving around an axis. It can be verified that any rotation center chosen on the axis rotation would give the same torque according to either definition of R. Alright.
Okay, let us examine in more detail the torque equation for rigid objects rotating around an axis. We have that torque equals the sigma R F
Perpendicular.
upside down T equals sigma R MA, which equals sigma MR R alpha, which equals alpha sigma mass R squared. Alright, so we define I equals sigma mr squared to be the moment of inertia, and note that R is taken to be the distance from the axis, not from the origin. And we can rewrite the torque equation as torque equals I alpha. Note the similarities between this equation and Newton's second law. Newton's second law states that a force would cause an acceleration and the magnitude of the acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. This law, which we call Newton's second law for rotational motion, states that a torque would cause an angular acceleration inversely proportional to the moment of inertia. The moment of inertia depends on how mass is distributed around an axis. A mass further from the axis has a higher moment of inertia than the same mass closer to the axis. The moment of inertia is not unique for any object in general. The moment of inertia is different for every axis of rotation. For a finite number of objects, we can simply evaluate the sum. For a continuous distribution of matter, we use I equals the integral of R squared dn, which equals the integral of R squared PdV, where P is the density. This integral is generally quite messy to evaluate. The moment of inertia for simple geometric shapes, such as spheres and cylinders, are given in various tables around commonly used axes. Suppose we know the moment of inertia about an axis through the center of mass, I initial. Then the moment of inertia about any other axis parallel to the first is given by I equals I initial plus md squared, where d is the distance between two axes.
A golf swing is basically the unfolding of the club from the cocked position that causes rotational energy to be transferred from the arms and the body to the club. This unfolding can be passive, requiring no effort from the golfer. In the actual swing, the golfer is applying torque throughout the swing to the inner arm of the double pendulum by using his muscles in his torso to turn the shoulders. We'll be looking at the torque applied to the outer arm of the pendulum. So basically the work done by the golfer's hands and how the different placement of the hands and different movement of the hands can affect where the ball goes and its torque. In the figure above, we are looking at a view of a golf swing.
The red dot is the direction of the club head throughout the swing, and the blue dot is the direction of the hands. At first, they start moving in different directions, but obviously this can't continue because they are restrained by the fixed length of the shaft. The diverging directions of the club and hands result in a large tension in the shaft. The tension pulls against the club head, causing it to accelerate, and it pulls the hands, causing them to decelerate. It is the differing directions of the hands and club that are ultimately responsible for the energy transfer, since, as you